And I do also love the commitment to your art. I mean, what dedication to go clubbing all over America just to get this information. It's truly a sacrifice that you had to make for your art.
You know what? I'm gonna say it was a sacrifice. I was saying this yesterday, but I was 6 months postpartum in that first scene, and I was still, nursing my child, and milk was still coming from my body. So it was really a sacrifice. It wasn't like, yeah, I was ready to get out there, but it was also like I was pumping milk before I left the house. I was pumping milk as, in the middle of the nightclub,
Oh my
to
gosh.
the cold ice pack. And then when I got home, I was still pumping milk. So when I was going to these parties that first year, it was like I had to be prepared to still feed my child, even if I wasn't home.
Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watch Your Pass, and I'm talking to Elizabeth Ai and Rachel Sine of New Wave, which is premiering at the Tribeca International Film Festival on June 8th, 2024. I'm going to talk to them right now, and while you're watching, if you can like, subscribe to this channel, that would be fantastic. That's a lot. Thank you. Thanks so much for joining me today. I've got Elizabeth Ai and Rachel Sine of New Wave, which is premiered at the Tribeca International Film Festival on June 8th, 2024. It is a documentary about an era in Vietnamese music and how that era related to the generation that listened to it, but also the generation that came after it. It is a very personal story. It has a lot of really wonderful songs and outfits, and it is definitely a journey of self-discovery for Elizabeth and the audience as well. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm very excited to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having us on your show. We really are excited to speak to you.
Of course, of course. So, first question. This is for Elizabeth. It's kind of in the documentary, kind of the reasons why you started making this. But if you could just sum it up really quickly, like what drove you to make this documentary? Was it just you wanted to catalog this era that was kind of disappearing? Did you just want to explore some aspects of your family? Maybe it was both. I'm not sure. It kind of blended together as your journey continued.
It was 2018 and I was embarking on motherhood. And that was really the beginning of the journey. I was grappling with the kinds of stories I would share with my daughter. And I didn't have very much in terms of our family history. I didn't have parents who raised me. I had teenage uncles and aunties who raised me back in the 80s. I was a child of the 80s, and I grew up with all of my childhood memories wrapped in this new wave music. So I was like, well, you know what? Instead of rehashing those old war movies, we'll start here with new wave music.
There you go. Yeah, that's great. Like I love that you kind of like your embarking on motherhood kind of made you think back of what stories you would tell your own child and how that like maybe you wanted to do it differently. It seems like you kind of want to do it little differently than what you had growing up. So I
Yeah. Oh, no, I was going to say, of course, I want to do it differently, but I think that that's not really where the journey started. I think it was like wanting to tell the story was the first part. And I thought, it was such a noble thing to do. Yeah, I wanted to do it differently. But it wasn't where it started, right? It really started with this music, and I thought I was doing something very noble. I was going to save a little piece of history, and I'm going to make this music documentary. It started off much more as a conventional music doc than what the final piece ended up. It took 4 years of kind of researching and putting the film together before people, close friends like Rachel and other teammates started to ask me, what is it that you're really trying to say about this community that took it so much, took it to a personal space?
got it. And so originally, did you just kind of like grab whatever new wave information, like VHS tapes, audio tapes, records, things like that, that you could get your hands on, and then that kind of like was a nucleus of your journey? Is that kind of how you first started, since you said it was more of like a music documentary at the start?
Yeah, at first it was just kind of like really doing a lot of research on my own. I wanted to learn, new wave is a misnomer for what they called it. It really is like a subgenre of new wave music. It's anything that falls under new wave currently for me, I feel is anything that has synthesized music, right? So they use the synth keyboards, the drum machines, etc. I read the history of German pop. I went and learned about like Italo disco and Austrian disco, and they, kind of all these variations of them taking American disco and using these synthesized instruments to make their music. The new wave that I think most Americans know of is the British new wave, the Depeche Modes, Pet Shop Boys, OMD, and what they listened to was Modern Talking, CC Catch, Sandra, Sauvage, all these other bands that were I feel like the lesser known bands and maybe relatively unknown bands in America. And I went straight to the Vietnamese diaspora that covered the music. And that was kind of the first entry point for me, was like just kind of doing research around the music and trying to find patient zero. Um, but we all know you don't, it's a, you don't win at that game. Everybody's like, oh, I heard it was this person. Oh no, it was that person in this record shop. Oh no, it was this DJ who brought it from France. Oh no, it was this other DJ. I think he had like a cousin who was in Italy. It like, it's the Koreans, it's the Cantonese people. And I never got to a patient zero moment with anybody, everybody all agreeing. So, um, yeah, I guess you're asking like, where did this all start? But it was a deep, deep research that turned into expanding it out to the team and us trying to like put things through a funnel and say like, what's really important about this community?
For sure. And then that kind of leads perfectly into the question of, so Rachel, how did you get involved in this project? What drew you to Elizabeth's documentary? Maybe you just really love Eurosynth because hey, it's catchy and upbeat. Everyone loves it.
Yeah, actually, I didn't really know anything about this music or anything about the scene until, Elizabeth shared it with me. We had worked together on some projects in the past, and I really came onto this at zero. So it was really fun for me to just, learn everything I could about the music, but also about the community and what they went through because, I had really only kind of read about the Vietnam War and the history books. And, I was able to really get a firsthand perspective of what the community went through after they fled Vietnam at 75 and onwards.
That's awesome. That's great that you were able to like expand your own knowledge and learn about something that's intimately important to your friend and kind of like get a better understanding of your friend and people around you. That's fantastic. I also saw in the movie, it looks like you maybe did some practical research. Rachel, I don't know if you were there, but Elizabeth was definitely there. I saw her clubbing. Like that is very important research too, to see how the practical effects of the new wave or I love that scene to start off, right? Like I love to see how it is still intimately a part of your life.
Yes, and they know how to party. They get down. I mean, they'll stay out all night.
Yeah, I'm not that much younger than them, but at least a decade. But I'm like, wow, I'm so tired already. It's like I'm a mom and I'm so tired. They've got like kids in, college and beyond, and I'm like, what? You guys party so hard. They're really good at it. So I hope that when I'm their age, that maybe there's like another wind and I get I get to like party really hard, like the new wavers from the 80s. That was really a big part of it. If you're asking like what was that like? I mean, I went to a lot of nightclubs. I went to a lot of these throwback parties with the folks in Orange County. I went out to Las Vegas. I was out in Paris. I was in Houston, a lot of different cities and spaces and people of that generation, that first generation, that 1.5 generation, that still really hold on to this music across the diaspora. I think kind of a big part of our process was, doing our social media outreach to crowdsource archives, which Rachel can talk a little bit about too.
Yeah, I mean, it was really just, a grassroots effort to get all of these photos and videos from the community. I mean, a lot of this stuff was kind of just in folks' garage or under their bed. And so it was a huge team effort between our archival producer and our associate producer to get all of these archives from the community. And we actually ended up having a display in the Vinda Museum in Culver City, California, like some of the archives that we collected. So we're hoping that there's more opportunities for us to also put some of those physical archives out in the world. And then also we have a book that's going to be coming out later this year of some of the other materials that didn't make it into the film.
That's awesome. Oh, I love that. I love that you're, a full commitment to preserving this era and these stories. It's not just the documentary, which is important. It's also, other artifacts and things like that, getting them out in the community so people can see them. And I do also love the commitment to your art. I mean, what dedication to go clubbing all over America just to get this information. It's truly a sacrifice that you had to make for your art.
You know what? I'm gonna say it was a sacrifice. I was saying this yesterday, but I was 6 months postpartum in that first scene, and I was still, nursing my child, and milk was still coming from my body. So it was really a sacrifice. It wasn't like, yeah, I was ready to get out there, but it was also like I was pumping milk before I left the house. I was pumping milk as, in the middle of the nightclub,
Oh my
to
gosh.
the cold ice pack. And then when I got home, I was still pumping milk. So when I was going to these parties that first year, it was like I had to be prepared to still feed my child, even if I wasn't home.
Yeah, that sounds, it sounds more fun when I say it out loud than it does when you actually describe like the actual amount of sacrifice that you had to go through.
Well, you know what? I think there's a lot of like invisible labor that we talk about in the making of the film. And that for me is what really I want to make a fine point about it, because, there's a lot of films about the Vietnamese experience that are told by white men, and men in general, not non-white men, that still center violence and toxic masculinity. And that was something that I just wanted to not have in my film. I know that these things have created deep scars and divisions in our community, but one of the things that I really wanted to highlight was these unspoken sacrifices that people make. And we don't have to rehash the war. We know that, there's the 50-year anniversary of the end of the Vietnam American War that's going to be coming up in April 2025. And for me, this was like, hey, when they're replaying Platoon, Full Metal Jacket, Apocalypse Now, I want to add my verse to this, canon of films and say there is rebellion, creativity, music, and deep heartache in our community that we can highlight, that doesn't have to be with bombs exploding and, the villainy of my community.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a really good point. I didn't actually think about that, the way that, your documentary portrays it versus other documentaries, which probably do focus more on the conflict.
And narratives.
Yeah.
It's not just documentaries, it's narrative films too. People that make the fiction films about the Vietnamese, it's always incredibly violent.
And this one is definitely not violent. It is a lot more upbeat and fun. And you couldn't make a New Wave documentary, as I know now after watching it, without having Linda in there. How did she get involved in this? Was she excited? Was she maybe a little hesitant? Maybe somewhere in between? How did you get her involved in this whole project?
It was incredibly challenging. I would love Rachel to talk a little bit about some of
Yeah.
the obstacles too.
Well, Linda is, as the film shows, is truly one of the most hardworking women out there. I mean, she is so busy between working in her shop and still going out and performing across country. I mean, she actually did make it out to the premiere, which we were so excited about. But even just right before she got to New York, I think she was performing in Detroit. So it was very challenging just to get access to her. So I think that was probably the most difficult part, but I'm sure was a little hesitant to, open up to us just because she has been criticized so heavily in the media of her own community. And so we really tried to make her feel comfortable, that we established trust with her. It was, a 4-year process of working with her and following her around, and slowly, like as she got to know us better, I think she just felt a little more comfortable.
Yeah, no, for
Yeah, I
sure.
think wanting to portray her honestly and fairly, but also empathetically.
Yeah, no, and you get that too when there's a scene where she like has something that she wants to do, a desire that she wants to do, and the community kind of like not the backlash, but didn't catch on as much as she was hoping to. And you can see that it was something that she really loved, that she wanted to put effort into, and she wasn't able to kind of go that direction in her career. She had to pivot just to kind of survive and keep making money for her family and keep making money for herself as well. And that is a very empathetic scene. It was a sad moment in the documentary. It's definitely good that was portrayed. I think you got the right tone with her as well. And curious, how are her sandwiches? I assume they're delicious, but I'm just curious.
I don't know. Have you had one?
I actually have not had one yet, and I've been meaning to get down there.
Oh,
So
I have. I've had it multiple times. They're very good. They're very good. I recommend it if you're like slightly intrigued and you're not far from Orange County. You definitely get to her sandwich shop and try one of her sandwiches. They are good.
I
she
mean,
says that her sauce is like the secret to the sandwich. She was like a special recipe for her sauce. So
Yeah.
I have been meaning to get down there.
Perfect. I mean, it's been open for years, right? It's got to be good if it's surviving this long. So
Yeah, I think they just celebrated like a 10-year anniversary, maybe last year. Yeah.
that's awesome. And another big draw for this, other than Linda and you, obviously, is Simu Liu, who is the executive producer. How did you get him involved? Was this just something that you kind of like sent out the project to and he was intrigued by it, or had you worked with him on anything before?
Yeah, so we were actually in touch with his agent, and he passed along a very, very rough cut of the film, and he just fell in love with it and said, how can I support you? And we were just so thrilled that, he saw Elizabeth's vision. And one of the things that he shared was, that Asians aren't a monolith. And so he just wanted to, be a part of this new narrative that Elizabeth was telling.
Yeah, he also told us that he acted in the Canadian production of a Vietnamese play called Viet Gone. And he was like, I have a touch point with your community because I acted in this play and I just, loved the playwright so much. And my parent, he said his parents came to Canada through, pursuing their higher education degrees. And it was such a different experience from what he had learned about the refugee experience of like living through war and fleeing by boats. So he was just like, this is an incredible story and I really want to support it. So yeah, we're really grateful that he signed up to be a part of our team.
That's awesome. Asian solidarity. I love it. I love seeing that. That's really amazing, and also fun that he had like a touch point to the community. Also, that kind of like you remind like I don't know, reminded him or at least like revived in him that desire. So that's perfect. I know we have very limited time. I'm going to switch very quick, couple lightning round questions, just very short questions about the film. I want to see how your personal experiences map to things in the movie. Elizabeth, I imagine your personal experiences are very close, but we'll see what I can do. And you can feel free to pass any of them. I will not be offended, but I try to keep them very answerable. First question for both of you. What is your favorite new wave song?
Ooh, my most recent one is something that I learned in the process of Rachel and I working on the music supervision towards the end of the process of finishing, but The Witch.
I was gonna say that too. I was gonna say that too by Helen. Or also, okay, Gina T's Tokyo by Night. That's also a
Pretty
really
fun.
good, yeah, it starts the film. But I was gonna say The Witch too.
But the one that stuck for a very long time and I'll be holding on to it forever is Call My Name by Lisa G. And that it bookends the film. So I love that song so much. It was very early. It was literally one of the first songs that I said I have to have in this film. And I'm so glad that we were able to access and clear the license for it. But yeah.
That's awesome. That's perfect. Next question. Have either of you visited Vietnam? Elizabeth, I assume you have, but I'm not sure. I don't know. Rachel, have you visited Vietnam?
No, I definitely would love to in the future.
I've been there many, many times, and in fact, have made a film. I produced a film there, so I've lived there for a period of time. A film called Saigon Electric back in 2011.
That's awesome. Perfect. And I love that you continue to come back and kind of like go back to the, your not your roots, but I guess, the roots of your family's past and kind of connect there. What was the last time either of you dressed up in like a sweet 80s outfit with the hair and the colors and all the great things that we get to see in this movie?
We're gonna have to do that.
I know, I was actually trying to find a suit for the premiere that would be kind of 80s, but I couldn't find one in time. That's a good question.
It's like back in vogue, I feel like. We'll get back to you on that.
Yeah,
We
we're
have
gonna
it,
plan our
we're gonna have to
outfits.
plan it out and send you like a snap of me and Rachel dressed in 80s gear.
For sure, please do. I mean, everything comes full circle. I want to see the hair. I love like there's just insane hair, the hairspray, everything. It's just
Gotta get
it's
the big the nest in my head.
I
yeah,
am wearing my hat though.
oh, perfect. I love it. I'm just jealous because I can't. I would have to wear a wig, which is probably a whole nother level that I'm not ready to accept yet. Um, and the last question, I love this, Elizabeth. Someone in the documentary, when their big kind of splurge that they did at one point was to take a full family picture to have everyone documented. When was the last time either of you took like a full family picture? Use your own discretion on how full of a family you want it to be, but when was the last time you took like a full fancy family picture?
Well, here at Tribeca, yeah, I had my very close cousins come out from San Francisco. My mom flew in from Jackson Hole, my brother from Nevada, my sister lives here in New York.
Yeah.
My husband's here with me and my daughter. So, I mean, we took a lot of pictures together. I don't know if it was like a studio picture, but we took a lot of pictures together, and that was really meaningful.
Cool. That counts. And I love that your mom flew out. That warms my heart to hear that. That's a fantastic bookend. Rachel, how about you? Have you
Probably my wedding last year. That was, you know, we all got dressed up and, you know, yeah, I think that was the last big family portrait I had.
That's a great excuse, and that's the perfect time to take a
Yeah.
big family picture. So the film is out. It premiered at Tribeca on June 8th, 2024. You're out promoting the film, getting the word out. But after people see New Wave, are there any other projects either of you are working on that people can look forward to next?
I am working on developing, or we've been developing, the dramatic adaptation of this world for television.
Oh, that's
Like
awesome.
a series of New Wave, yeah. So, you know, it started off as a fiction film, and then my husband nudged me and said, you know, it'd be so easy to make a documentary instead. So it took 6 years, and I'm like, I'm gonna make a fiction series, and that's what I'm gonna do. So hopefully you saw that in the film. There's a lot of elements, like cinematic elements, things that I drew from like the process of fiction, because I couldn't find it in archives, and it was very hard to, you know, get verite from some of our film participants. So I did the recreations very intentionally to be like, I want people to feel close. The moment, you know, the first moment you go into a nightclub, Linda like performing on stage, you know, that kind of stuff was very intentionally done with like a cinematic POV.
That's perfect. No, I love that. I love it. It's a dry run. It's perfect. It's your own demo reel eventually. That's awesome. Rachel, what about you? Do you have anything on the horizon that people can look forward to?
Yeah, I mean, I've just been so laser focused on New Wave, the documentary, but I think like Liz mentioned, you know, there's just so many other stories that, you know, we weren't able to fit in this, you know, 90-minute film. So the New Wave series is next thing that's up.
No, that should be
The New Wave cinematic universe. I love it. So you can look forward to future stories from this era and you know, this collection of information. But first, check out New Wave. It premiered at the Tribeca International Film Festival on June 8th, 2024. This is Elizabeth Ai and Rachel Sine. Thank you so much for your time.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye.
That was Elizabeth Ai and Rachel Sine talking about New Wave, which premiered at the Tribeca International Film Festival on June 8th, 2024. It is a documentary about an era in Vietnamese American music, but also how that relates to the generation that came through with that and also the generation that followed. If you like this interview, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all that new content goes straight to you. Thank you.